episode of the Sri Lankan Understanding. Today we are here at the Mount Lavinia Hotel Maitland Stateroom. The hotel is our sponsor for this episode, and today we are going to explore the aspects of Sri Lanka, not just from where we are currently, but from a historical, archaeological and cultural perspective. So to do that, today I am here, I'm Lilanka Botejue, I'm a tea marketer and trainer by day. I'm a writing owl by night, and I have a passion for history and archaeology, which is why I did an MSc in it. So with me we have
I'm Chryshane Mendis. I work in the cultural diplomacy field, but I also double down as a researcher in archaeology. So like Lilanka, I too did my postgraduate studies in archaeology and focus more on military landscapes and fortresses. So that's how I also come into this field. So yeah.
Yes. So today's episode we are going to be talking about something that we are very passionate about. It's the Kotte Kingdom, which is a living heritage, something which is quite rare because we don't have a fortress that with so many remains and elements remaining. It's 500 years old. And so today's conversation is going to be looking at the Kotte Kingdom from a heritage point of view, and also what we can do as Sri Lankans to preserve it for the future. So Chryshane, the Kotte Kingdom, shall we talk a little bit about how old it is, what it is, who was the king there?
Yeah, definitely. So as we both know, it was begun as a fortress as part of the Gampola Kingdom initially. So that starts around the end of the 1300s. Because one of the powerful ministers of the Gampola king was this person called Veera-Alkeshwara. So he develops this area, which was a marshy area in the current Kotte Sri Javadharmura area, and he develops it as a fortress specifically to deter the invaders from the Jaffna kingdom, because at that point Gampola kingdom was on its decline, and the Jaffna kingdom was collecting taxes from all the ports along the western coast. So it was a countermeasure to prevent the taxation from the northern kingdom. So that was successful. There were several battles taking place around the area, and then he managed to free the Gampola kingdom's hold from the Jaffna kingdom. But unfortunately for him, the Chinese admiral Sheng Ho starts his voyages soon after in the early 1400s, and Veera-Alkeshwara by that time was the main power behind the monarchy, and so he was residing in Kotte, and then around 1409 he is captured by the Chinese envoy because he had insulted them on one of their trading voyages, and so he's taken to China. And then the Chinese emperor virtually appoints the young Parakabahu as the heir apparent to the kingdom of Sri Lanka. And so that's where we find from 1411 Parakabahu the sixth taking over. And as you know, he had a very illustrious reign in the kingdom.
And so Parakabahu the sixth, actually his reign was considered a glorious period in Sri Lanka. So when we talk about archaeology, it's actually the past tense of anthropology, right? So you talk about not just buildings and remnants, we are talking about how people lived. And one of the greatest things we got during that time was a lot of Sinhala literature.
Definitely.
Right? And I think people are familiar with Tottagamuwa Sri Rahula Himi. He wrote the Salalihini Sandesha. I know, I studied it in school. Right? And even things like the Jayawardhanapura Vanum, which was a precursor. So a lot of rich history, art, culture came out at that time. So we are talking about a reign of about 100+ years.
The Kotte Kingdom's reign, so Parakabahu the sixth was the first king of Kotte, and he had, I think, 55 years of reign. And so during his kingship, he actually managed to reconquer territories of the Kandyan kingdom and even northern Sri Lanka. So after actually the Anuradhapura and Polonnaru kings, he is the last king to sort of unify the whole island under one monarchy.
Yes, and also the kingdom really stretches. If you take Kotte, what we know, it was just the center, but the kingdom extends up to the north, south, and the whole.
I think all the way till about Putlam in the north, like the Kotte proper area, because soon after Parakabahu's reign, it again splits. So by the latter half of the 1400s, it's actually the kingdom of Kotte, Kandy, and Jaffna. So
that's
I think the major part of the kingdom was this whole, in the modern sense, western province, southern province, and I think parts of the north central province.
So the Kotte Kingdom was actually, so like you said, it's 500 years ago. We had so much, I mean, a lot of intrigue associated with it. And now, 500 years down the line, the fact that it's still remaining, we have the ramparts and you have the
in certain
forms. So, Chryshane, would you like to explain a little bit, since you have, sort of specialized in looking at forts and fortresses. What is special about the Kotte Kingdom fortress if you take the, the fortifications of it?
Yeah, so I think one of the main inputs is that it is one of the largest. So Kotte it started off as a military fort, but of course it evolved into a large city. And ever since the early Anuradhapura period, all the major capital cities had defenses around it. So they were a fortress cum city. So Anuradhapura had a rampart and moat around it, Polonnaruwa, Sigiriya, everything. So this is the general trend, like wherever the monarchy is, there needs to be extra protection. So Kotte is actually one of the last remaining of these fortified cities that we have. So Kotte was built as a city from Parakabahu the 6th reign from the early 1400s until the mid 1500s. So it had about 150 years as a city, and after that actually, with the wars with the Portuguese and all the other Europeans, Sri Lankan cities do not evolve into that level of sophistication. And yes, while most of the city of Kotte has been destroyed, we still have lots of remains of the ramparts, at least foundations per se. And so that's one of the key features I find interesting, that we have this layout and the ramparts of 14th and 15th century fortified city, and after that you hardly find anything.
Yes, and the fact that it's made of laterite, right? So kabok, what Sri Lanka, kabok, right? So the laterite rock that was used, and the fact that there were 4 devales on the 4 corners of the fortress, right? That is mentioned.
Exactly.
Yes.
So of course there are no remains of these devales, and what you basically actually see now is mainly the kabuk foundations, and there's one part of the outer rampart that actually has granite slabs, and there are even colonial records where the granite slabs were much more visible, and they had removed some of the slabs and taken to build bridges during the British period. So a lot of destruction has happened.
And also in terms of a fortress, things like a moat, you still have the remnants, right? The outer moat, you can see
exactly. It's both the inner city moat and the outer city moat is very well visible. I think the more deeper one is the inner city moat. That you can go along the Atul Kotte road. When you enter through the rampart road, you reach the moat, and it's incredible. Even in Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa, apart from Sigiriya, you don't find the moat as that deep and prominent. Right? Yeah, I mean, of course, those are very old, sediments have filled up. Whereas the moat at Kotte is just pretty incredible.
And also the moat, I think if you read some of the chronicles and some of the historical records, it talks about the kind of, what do you call it, measures they took, security measures as it were of that time, right? Military security in terms of the depth, the fact that they had different types of traps, there were crocodiles in it, it had so many
they actually really, so even when you read like the Kautilya's Arthashastra and even other South Asian texts where they discuss on military defenses, it's not just a defense wall and a moat. So you have different layers of mud as a barrier, the lake as a barrier, sand barrier. So there are lots of these elements, and you can actually see that in Kotte. I mean, even still today around Kotte, it's very marshy. So the Kotte king, especially when Viratakeshwara developed it, he reused that area. It was already a marsh, and this sort of peninsula-like place in the marsh, he used the marsh to his advantage, and then he expanded the Devanavaya in that area, so it was protected by the Devanavaya, the marsh, and then we have the ramparts as well. So yeah, lots of layers.
So we will be going in for a commercial break, and we will be back with more information. Hi, we are back again looking at the Kotte Kingdom, a living heritage, and learning different aspects of it. So, Chryshane, now the Kotte Kingdom is synonymous with the Portuguese.
Yes.
Yes, why is that?
This is an interesting question. So, of course, that's the time, like I said, runs through the 1400s and to the 1500s. So, we know the Portuguese came to Sri Lanka in 1506. So, that's also another very interesting point, is that generally in the public narrative in Sri Lanka, and even sort of formally, it is known that the Portuguese arrived in 1505. But however, proper modern scholarship has actually proved that wrong. They actually proved that wrong 100 years ago, but it didn't really pick up, unfortunately. But even a couple of decades ago, Professor C.R. De Silva also re-examined the evidence, and he points out that they definitely arrived in 1506, or rather they could not have arrived in 1505. So there is no particular direct mention of it in any of the Portuguese documents, but when you compare the literature and the evidence, it points to arrival in 1506. So that's an interesting point on its own. And so as you know, they first came to Colombo. So Colombo and Kotte also, there is a significant relationship between the two, because Kotte is just about 6 kilometers from Colombo. And so Colombo was the chief port of the Kingdom of Kotte, Colombo and Panadura and so on. But since it was the closest, that's where most of the trade took place. And so naturally the Portuguese arrived there in Colombo, and then the story goes that the Sinhalese took them to see the king in a longer route.
Yes, Parangia, Kotegia, I'm sure all of us have heard this saying. But Chryshane, we were discussing that, you know, evidence-wise, there are, anecdotes talking about it, I think, by Keros, right?
Yes, so I think in the Sri Lankan chronicles, in the Sinhalese chronicles, there is no mention of it.
Yes.
But some of the late Portuguese chronicles do that. And so what I also feel is that since this Sinhalese proverb is quite prevalent among us, that Parangia Kotegia, I'm pretty sure it would have originated from Kotte times as well. And so when these later Portuguese chronicles were chronicling the events, they probably picked up from Sinhalese informants on the oral histories that are prevalent. So that's probably how it comes in. So whether they actually went
on a roundabout route, we don't really know.
Don't know. But it's interesting to think like that, because even from a strategic point of view, the rationale given is that they don't want to show the Portuguese how close the city is to the port.
Of course.
For a defensive measure, they take them on a longer route. So
yeah, that makes sense.
It makes sense, exactly.
And speaking of which, now we were discussing this tunnel system. Now, I mean, if anyone has ever explored a Kotte, there is Ananda Shastralaya, the school, and in there is a tunnel network, and of course there are lots of conspiracy theories and stories around these tunnels, because you know tunnels are intriguing wherever in the world they are.
Exactly. And
and
here at Mount Lavani Hotel also
there's a tunnel which we will talk about on another episode. So here, I mean, I think the tunnel system, we were discussing, you know, was there actually a tunnel system? Did they use it as an escape route, or was it like used for military strategizing? What is your view,
so
Chryshane?
based on my readings, of course tunnels are a very important defense tool, and it would have been used in all kinds of societies all over the world. It's not a sort of a unique thing to Sri Lanka or anything like that. But yet you find a lot of these folklore of people in Sri Lanka, places in Sri Lanka that has stories saying there is a tunnel from here to there and here to there, and over these ridiculously long distances. So there might be some truth to some locations, but it's very hard to judge, because there is no real evidence for some of these places. Like, you'll find a lot of people in a particular location saying there's a tunnel entrance from here and all, but then there is nothing to be seen. And there is, I've also noticed the trend where if there is a tunnel found somewhere, they all fill it up. So I don't know, I find it hard to understand that enthusiasm and the mystique between the tunnel, and when we actually find a tunnel, we close it.
Yeah, it may be a fear factor that some kind of force is coming via the tunnel.
Probably.
Yeah.
But so at Kotte, actually, yes. When you look at when you read the chronicles, especially the Portuguese chronicles, because in the mid 1500s, the city of Kotte is at war with the city of Sitavaka.
Yes.
So Rajasinghe and Mayadune are attacking the city of Kotte, and they actually besiege it for a couple of years. So they surround the city, and in the Portuguese. So by that time, the Portuguese were heavily involved in the defense of the city, and they specifically mentioned Portuguese using tunnels as a sort of escape route to actually attack the camp of Rajasinghe from the rear.
Yes.
So that's one of the at least solid textual evidence of the tunnel existing. The remains at present, of course, there is that Kabuk construction at the Kotte Shastrale, which is hypothesized to be a tunnel junction or the entrance. And there are other particular locations where people have recalled saying there used to be a tunnel entrance from here and all.
A well and all that, right?
Sorry?
There's a well, I think, mentioned as an exit point or an entry point.
Christian mission school, now called the Sri Javadharpura Mahavidyalaya. Also, I spoke to a gentleman who said in the 70s, he remembers there was a cave in and then they found a partial tunnel.
Okay.
So, but of course, things yet are to be found.
Yes. So we are moving on into our next commercial break, and we will be back with a call to action to what you can do for the Kotte Kingdom. Stay tuned. Hi, so we are back again to discuss the Kotte Kingdom, a living heritage, and now today and right now we're going to talk about what you as people of Kotte and citizens of Sri Lanka can do to preserve it for the future generations. So, Chryshane?
Yeah, well, of course, there's much of the interior of the city of Kotte had been destroyed by the Portuguese. So, when they retreated, they demolished most of the buildings and took the material to rebuild Colombo. But still, much of the rampart was remaining, and unfortunately, within the last couple of decades, there's been a lot of gentrification and construction in Kotte, Atul Kotte particularly areas, and so you have lots of the sections of the rampart still surviving, but many are in private lands.
Yes.
And so there are some people who actually are genuinely concerned of this, and they love and they are proud to show off that we come see in our land is part of the ramparts of the city of Kotte. But then there are places that it gets neglected and gets destroyed also in some cases. But I think, like we were discussing, it's very, very important to preserve these, right?
Yes, and also people of Kotte should understand you are the guardians of this heritage, because what happened is, I remember speaking to an archaeology guard then, what he said is, especially after the parliament was built in Sri Javadhanapura, that became a huge attraction point for people to buy property around that area. So a lot of political influence and things caused people to buy even what you call preserved lands. Because if you look at archaeological heritage and how it should be protected, so you don't beautify things to make it look what you thought it would be 500 years ago. Now, this is a misconception people have in reconstruction and preservation. So, as students of archaeology, both of us know, like when we study archaeology, what they say is you find something in its current state and you keep it like that, because we will never know what it looked like 500 years ago, no matter what a chronicle says, a book says or whatever. So, the norms of what you call maintenance and preservation of heritage sites and things is to keep it as it is, not to put your version of what you think it would have looked like.
Especially I think when it comes to non-religious sites, that really applies.
Exactly. Non-religious and even religious sites, sometimes even if you take the, Abhayagiriya, it is kept as it is. We have no idea what it looked like in its glory days in Anuradhapura. So even with the Kotte Kingdom and in the remnants, the ramparts and even certain things, you have Rampart Road, you have Alakeshwara Palace,
and
you have Viharakanda.
Having an archaeological monument like a rampart in your garden should not be seen as a sort of a barrier to yourself. Like one could be proud of it, and so that's the issue with archaeology and urban space
sort of
also.
Development.
Like people like to remove any archaeological ruins and all, but they can actually go hand in hand. Development and archaeological monuments and historic sites can actually complement each other. So, because they preserve the memory of that place and of the people that built it. So totally removing it to build modern houses is also not sensible. But modern houses and the monument can coexist. The laws are not really there for that kind of intervention, but as long as what I've also understood from while being in this field is that if the private owners, if the people themselves are willing to make that adjustment, wanting to preserve the heritage and still live and find a sort of a middle path, it's possible, and that would be the best approach, I believe.
Yes, and also I encourage all the people of Kotte. I don't think many actually know what their surroundings are.
No, exactly.
Take a little tour. I saw the tourist board is looking at doing
they are doing a project. Then there is the Kotte Heritage Foundation as well. You can contact them on Facebook. So, there are these interest groups that can take care of, like educate the residents of Kotte and take care of its heritage, because like we were earlier also discussing, like after we hold Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa in very high regard as grand cities of our civilization.
Nation.
And Kotte is actually the third grand city,
Yes.
because after that whole era collapses, sort of. This is like the only stable city which had so much of wealth and power that it was amazing. It
Yes.
would have been amazing if we could have actually seen
Yes,
what the
and also even there are lovely stories. I mean, they say there is no foundation with that, but that even the Perahera that
Right.
went, from
Along
the Dalada Maliga
yes.
went along the rampart. Of course, some people dispute it. It may have been close to the rampart, but it still would have been a beautiful sight.
Exactly, and there is also descriptions that the Kotte palace, or maybe at least part of the palace, was built out of lapis lazuli,
Yes.
the lovely blue brick.
Yeah, exactly. So lapis lazuli, is a blue color, and it's not even from Sri Lanka.
Yeah,
it was
it's from
imported.
Central Asia. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
semi-precious stone, and
So that, I mean, think of a blue palace in a beautiful, in your Kotte Kingdom. So there's a lot we can do as citizens of Sri Lanka. So this is our way of trying to raise
Yeah.
awareness, especially the people of Kotte. This is our call out to you.
Exactly.
Don't wait for the government or any other official to do it. You are able to do it as a citizen.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
take that initiative and first go explore the Kotte Kingdom.
Definitely.
And Chryshane might do tours in the future. So yeah, we will keep you posted. But
Right.
yeah, so that is our call to you. Thank you for joining us for the Sri Lankan Understanding Kotte Kingdom episode. Stay tuned for more as Chryshane and I explore different topics that are to do with history, archaeology, culture, and understanding our past, so that if we know where we come from, we will know where we are going. So thank you for joining me.